So today we're looking at eponymous laws. You probably will have heard of some of these, and you probably don't know what they are, if that makes sense. The fact that they are eponymous laws, but you definitely will know of the ones that you do or are aware of, what they are. Once we understand these laws, we will begin to notice them more. And when we begin to notice them more, we'll understand how they work and how we can plan for them and try and avoid them as much as possible. So let's get straight to it. The first law is Murphy's Law. Everything that can go wrong will go wrong. The law states that if something can go wrong, it will go wrong, and usually at the worst possible moment. For example, you're running late for a meeting and you suddenly hit every red light, or your laptop crashes before you hit save on an important document. So here's the thought experiment. Imagine you're packing for a trip and decide not to bring an umbrella because it never rains when I carry one. But of course, as soon as you don't have it, there's a downpour. Was it luck or was it just a failure to prepare? So, how do we beat Murphy's Law? Well, plan for failure. Have backups to critical situations, extra phone chargers, emergency cash, cloud storage for important files. Maybe we need to think in the worst case scenario. It's if failure is inevitable at some point, how can we minimize the damage? And then control what you can. Murphy's Law thrives on the unprepared. The more control you have, the less chance of disaster. The second law is Sod's Law, and it's basically a worse version of Murphy's Law. Bad luck hits at the worst time. It's crueler than Murphy's Law, and it ensures that bad luck strikes precisely when it's going to hurt the most. It's like it knows that's the place to hit you. Your car breaks down on the morning of a job interview, not the day before when it could have done. Or the one time you don't double check your work, that's when your boss actually reviews it in detail. Both of those things have happened to me. What about thought experiment? If you always double check your work, would bad luck still hit as hard? Or does preparedness repel bad luck? So how do we beat this? Expect the unexpected. Assume the worst case scenario and act accordingly. If something is time sensitive, build an extra time. If your flight leaves at 10 a.m., plan to be at the airport by 8 a.m. Build that in. A lot of people who are late are actually perfectionists. They aim to be there at exactly 10 and they didn't account for issues. Those who are early generally understand these kind of laws. And then stay calm. Bad luck's inevitable and therefore we shouldn't get agitated by it. The next law is Kidlin's law. Why writing things down makes everything clearer. Your mind is like an overstuffed filing cabinet. Bit like the one that's in what's that Jim Carrey film with Morgan Freeman, Bruce Almighty. When he pulls the filing cabinet, it just goes endlessly out of the wall. When we write things down, it forces us to organise our thoughts, which is why when people revise and they go to school and those generally who are superior, they tend to write things down more. If you think you understand the concept, but then try to explain it to someone and you struggle because your thoughts feel clearer than they are until you write them down. Try explaining a complex idea to someone without writing anything down. Then write it out and explain it again. Notice the difference? How can we beat this law? Journal, maybe. Write down your problems, and then solutions will often appear clearer on paper. Maybe you use lists or mind maps. The organization can visually help untangle complexity. I mean, I'll know this myself, and you probably will as well. You get taught something, and it sounds so complicated, and someone draws out a diagram. You're like, oh, is that it? That plus that equals that. Oh, that goes over here. That goes over there. Very easy, but our mind can sometimes be a bit of a scatterbrain, a bit of a mess. So write things down and make it simple. Next one is Gilbert's law. Why nothing is as simple as it first seems, and don't we know it? Everything has hidden complications. Moving to a new city might sound exciting until you deal with the logistics of packing, housing, and learning about the new area. Think about IKEA furniture. It looks pretty easy, doesn't it? Oh, well, I can make that. The instructions look simple, but you always end up extra screws, not enough screws. Halfway through, you have to change it and start again. Why is that? It's because, under Gilbert's law, nothing is as simple as it first seems. How do we beat it? Just make an assumption that every task is 20% harder than it looks. Then maybe you won't fall foul to it. Maybe you need to break it down, simplify problems into small, solvable steps. Maybe you need to ask for advice from someone who's done it before. The next one is Wilson's law, and this is a fantastic one. Why perfection kills progress. Wilson's law. Why perfection kills progress. Perfectionists get stuck tweaking instead of finishing, and they wait for the perfect time before they even start. An author might rewrite the chapter 50 times and then never finish the book, thinking it's never going to be right. It's better doing something badly than never doing it at all, as Jordan Peterson says. Would you rather launch a 90% perfect project today or a 99% one next year? The first option wins every time. So, how do we beat it? Set deadlines. Do something before you feel ready. Realize a good enough version can be improved upon later. And also remember that something done is better than it being perfect. The next one is Falkland Law. Why some decisions should never be made. Not every problem requires a solution. Some actually fix themselves. A company might overreact to a temporary PR crisis and actually make it worse by trying to explain themselves. Sometimes silence is the best thing to do. A cat stuck in a tree usually climbs down on its own instead of interfering, which might make things worse. How do we beat this law then? Ask ourselves, does this actually need any action? Can we give things time to settle and maybe work themselves out? And actually trust inertia. Sometimes doing nothing is the best move to make. And, maybe something else could make a mistake. Next one is Hofstadter's law, if that's even said right, by the way. Why everything takes longer than expected. Even if you know things take longer than they should do, they still do. A quick project turns into an all-day affair. A short call turns into a long call. How to beat it? Double your estimates. If you think it will take a week, plan for two. Prioritize on the essentials because looking for perfection eats time. And give yourself that strict time frame. The next law is Parkinson's law. Why tasks expand to fill the time available. The more time you allow for something, the longer things take. If you say, look, I've got a week to finish this project, it will take a week. If you say, I have got a year to finish this project, it will take a year. If you say, look, I've got to finish this project by tomorrow, you'll probably finish it by tomorrow. So set deadlines, set even artificial ones. Even though this goes against some of the other laws in some ways, things will take longer than expected. Sometimes it's a case of actually it will fit in with what you've allocated for it. Try it. Try multiplying the amount of things that you can get done in a day and see if you can fit them in. Next one and final one is Sturgeon's law. Why 90% of everything is garbage. Books, movies, ideas, social media posts is bad. You scroll through 100 Instagram posts, TikToks, Facebook. How many of those are truly valuable? Comes a bit down to the 80-20 rule, like we talked about before, the Pareto principle. And in fact, something that we didn't really discuss on the show, but the 80-20 rule could actually be petered down to 90-10 in reality. But again, that's maybe a conversation for a separate day. But how can we beat this Sturgeon's law? Ignore the noise. Actually seek out the gems. If we seek out the gems and the key valuable information, we will see less of 90% of the garbage or the actual garbage. What about volume? If 90% of things are bad, don't just create 10 ideas where one will be good. Create 100. Then you've got 10 solid ideas. It's all about maths. And expect things to be average. If you expect things to be average, the good stuff will stand out. So they're just some of the laws. There are plenty more eponymous laws, but it gives you an idea of how things can work and ways that we can understand and utilize these. So, which of those laws were your favorite, and which of those will you now be trying to implement?